My name is Justin Bond, Army Sergeant retired. After having served 10 years in the Army, my military career was ended in 2004 when I was shot through both of my knees at the Battle of Fallujah in Iraq. We were hitting IEDs, and we had mortars coming in, and RPGs, nothing we could do. And pretty soon I felt a burn. I looked at my driver and I could see him getting shot in the arm and the shoulder, and we just kept going, and I said, keep driving, keep the pedal down. And he looked at me and said, Bond, he says, his eyes were like golf balls, and he says, Bond, you're hit. And I looked down and I realized that burn that I hadn't noticed was an AK-47 round right through the center of both knees.
Hello and welcome to Valley Veterans Forum. On the eve of Veterans Day here in 2014, we are so fortunate to have a very special guest with us today, retired Sergeant Justin Bond. Justin, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
And we can't ignore Boomer sitting there on the floor. And you, whoops, kind of woke him up there. And you told me earlier he's actually has a higher ranking than you do. Is that
yeah?
true?
You have to listen to him. If he tells me to calm down or to relax, then I'm supposed to listen.
Yeah.
So.
And does he do commands like I've had the pleasure of being around him now for a couple hours, and he seems like he's a very well-behaved and proficient member, and he is actually an active member of the military. Is that correct?
I know he's not, but we do give him a rank. And he is very well-behaved. In fact, when we finished, I said, "Can you guys take my kids and train them?" And but they said they don't do kids. So. And
speaking of kids, I had the fortune to learn that he has a hierarchy at home that he needs to pay attention to?
Mm-hmm. If I'm not there, he'll listen to my wife, or if my wife's not in the room, he listens to the middle kid, and then he goes to the oldest and then the youngest.
Yeah.
But yeah, he won't listen to the youngest first.
So that's a good deal, and sounds like it would be a good deal to get your kids through that program, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Great.
For sure.
Well, Justin, let's let our audience get to know you as well, and tell us a little bit about you're a Valley boy, I understand it.
Born and raised in Hanford, yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Still live there. It's like the black hole. I leave, I come right back.
Yeah. In fact, you came back with a real big bang here. You just came back from running for office.
Yes, ma'am.
For Kings County District Office, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Board of Supervisors, and I had a 152 vote swing. It was like 300 votes. I lost by 301, but it was good. It was my first time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and so I'm excited.
That's great. That's a testimony, I think, to get out and vote, because that small difference of a victory or not winning this particular race says that our vote counts. And
it does. Yeah.
How appropriate is that when we're here on Veterans Day and talking about the rights that have been won for us? And
right. For generations, our soldiers, our military, Marines, airmen, they've carried the price of freedom on their shoulders, and they brought us to this point. And for us to complain about the way our country is going and not stand up and do something, or not get out there and vote, yeah, it's pretty selfish, I think.
Yeah, especially midterms is a real easy one to slouch behind, and yet, as we know from just the events of last week, elections really mean a lot, especially midterms. Every 2 years we have this great opportunity to vote. So
right.
Thank you for your service and what you did to help uphold our privilege to do that.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. Justin, I think there's so much of your story. It's hard to know where to begin. I think that the key issue for you and your passion has been veterans suicide prevention. Am I correct?
It's evolved into that, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and can you tell us about how that's a pivot point to the other things that you're involved in? Why are you so concerned about this issue? Obviously, it's an important issue, but what brought you here?
Well, ma'am, I returned home from the war, lost a leg, went through a total of 33 surgeries with everything. But But when I returned home, I didn't want to get up in the morning. I also didn't want to go to bed. I didn't want to take a shower. I got to a point where I just didn't want to be part of society. I checked out of society until I had lost so many friends. I lost 11 friends to suicide, and I knew we had to do something. And that and my wife's size 22 boot, she really got me motivated. And once I was able to help a few people, I learned that, hey, we're on earth for a blip of time. And God's given us the ability to be able to go out and change other people's lives. And after helping so many, the Veterans Nonprofit just kind of started opening up and expanding, and it's been evolving into what it is today.
Okay, so you touched on the Veterans Nonprofit. What is the name of the umbrella organization that you launched?
It's Wounded Soldiers and Family Relief Fund, but everybody knows us as Our Heroes' Dreams. And basically, there's 22 a day committing suicide right now. 22 a day. In 5 years, that's 40,000 people almost. And that's just an outrageous number. And that doesn't count the 2,000 a year on average. The Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, said that accidentally commits suicide or accidentally dies by taking an entire month's supply of Oxycontin and a 12-pack in a 10-minute period. But if the local sheriff comes in and says, hey, that was suicide, the family will not get the insurance money. So they come in and say, well, it was an accidental overdose, or he accidentally rode his motorcycle off a cliff at 135 miles an hour. And so the whole point of that is that the suicide number is much higher, but there's 22 confirmed a day, and that's almost 40,000 in 5 years. So not too long ago, I rode my Segway across America, 10 miles an hour. It's pretty stupid, but yeah. We went from Monterey to Florida, and we got to stop at a lot of military installations and VA hospitals. And what we learned is that 68% of that 22 a day were getting help for 1 year or more. And at the Sam Rayburn Institute, we learned that 100% of the guys and gals that committed suicide in their system got help a week before, came in and asked for help. There's a huge disconnect there. And what I learned is, I had a lot of time to think on that ride, and what I learned is that the VA counselors and the military counselors, they're treating us for PTSD. But PTSD is not what we have. See, PTSD is a traumatic event. That's a plane crash, a car wreck, a rape, a firefight, Boston bombings. That would be more of an event. Mm-hmm. What we go through is like sending an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid downtown, in civilian terms, downtown Los Angeles, South Central LA or Chicago, and saying, hey, you're going to go door to door and clean out all the bad guys. You're going to take all the bad guys off the street, take out all the drugs and the money. By the way, you're going to be sleeping on those sidewalks that you're fighting for, so you may not want to go to sleep too much, And at the end of 1 year, if you make it home, you can come home. So you come home, you turn off that light switch, and you get to know your family again, and pretty soon it's like, boom, turn on that light switch, let's go back. And you do this over and over, 4 times, 5 times is average. We had a guy just commit suicide after his 11th time. Oh. But see, you do return home eventually, wounded physically or mentally or both, and then the counselor, the VA counselor says, hey, how did you feel when this happens to you? And you say, when what happened to me? Oh, when you got shot at over there? Well, I got shot at every day. Mm. I got mortared every day. Well, how did you feel when you get, well, I carried my buddies off the battlefield. Several buddies returned home to the 21-gun salute. And eventually, the VA counselors the VA counselors, they hear this all day, every day. They keep hearing it over and over. So eventually they go home and they dream about it. And eventually they start to understand. But when this counselor comes in that's never seen any combat and says, oh, I understand, oh, I see, then there's a disconnect with these young veterans, because a young kid knows everything, right? 20 years old, they know everything. Sure. And all of a sudden there's a disconnect. They're treating us for a traumatic event, but what we just went through is a traumatic lifestyle. 4 years on the battlefield, 5 years on the battlefield is not a traumatic event. It's a traumatic lifestyle. We're not bred to go in and kill a 5-year-old kid. Right. We're not bred to go in and carry our buddies off the battlefield and wake up day in and day out getting shot at, wondering if we're going to return home or not. And then to return home to a country, to a family that doesn't know you. How can you continue to know your family if you're gone 4 out of 6 years? Mm. And when you do return home, nobody understands. And so you disconnect, you sit on the couch, you chew on the VA candy, you know, the Oxycontin, the Vicodin, you down it with alcohol. You might not have committed suicide tomorrow, you didn't do it yesterday, but today you numbed yourself just the right amount to pull the trigger, to go off the cliff, to drink yourself to death.
You know, Justin, it occurs to me that desperation is surely such a pit for the individual that's going through that long experience, I'm sure in many cases, but the desperation that a family must feel, or loved ones, to see someone experiencing that and how helpless they must feel. What, we talked about the successes of your program before the show, so tell me a little bit about that, because you've had some remarkable success. What's happened?
Yes, ma'am. Well, what we learned is that traditional counseling is not working. And like I said, 68% still commit suicide. So what we're doing is we're getting Vietnam veterans to come in, veterans that have 40 years experience of PTSD, of nightmares, of night sweats,
Wow.
and they know how to make it. They've survived. And when they come in and mentor the new guys, the returning guys and gals, they say, wow, nobody understands.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. The counselors say they know, but how could they? And so when we're sitting around a campfire and the Vietnam vet says, you know what, let me tell you about my experience. All of a sudden that new returning vet says, you have been there. How did you deal with that for 40 years? How did you wake up from night sweats? And he says, son, let me tell you how to make it tomorrow. And let me tell you how to make it till next year. And then let me tell you how to make it 40 years from now so you can help somebody else. And the returning vets open up. And all of a sudden, the Vietnam vets and the Korea vets, they say, wow, wait a minute. My war that I was sped up on and hated for now means so much that I can save a life to a returning vet. And so the healing starts to begin. And what we do then is we, all these other nonprofits around the country, I call them, they're like Band-Aids, and much needed Band-Aids. And we have to take those Band-Aids and put them on to the wound. Programs like Homes for Our Troops. They will build you a handicap accessible home and donate it to a severely wounded vet. Chase Bank's giving away 1,000 free foreclosed homes. Home Depot's giving away $80 million in materials to fix up veterans' homes. It goes on and on. We fix up cars and marriages and finances. You could be 6 months behind on your bills, on your mortgage. You could have no food and your power's off. And in 1 to 2 days, we can go out to organizations and have all that covered and fixed. Then while they're there, and those are all the Band-Aids to start the healing. Then while they're there, it's really cool. You get to ride elephants, swim with dolphins, feed lions and tigers, play with monkeys, zebras, kangaroos, all this.
Well, that sounds like that really is a shift from what's going on with other programs, as you put it, the Band-Aid effect, where there are a lot of different resources there that can fix a situation. But let's have a look at a video here that will.
Well, first I'd like to finish the last part, because if we sent the veteran home at that point, they still commit suicide. The last thing we have to do is to help them find a new mission, because I've seen homes, $1.5 million home given to a veteran, and his suicide note read, "Thank you for the nice home that my family can live in. Now I can check out peacefully."
Oh.
So all those Band-Aids don't heal the wound.
Right.
When we help them find a new mission, that fixes it. And it's really simple. We ask them what they used to do. And for example, one veteran, we asked, well, what did you used to do before you went in the military? He goes, well, I was homeless. So what about before you were homeless? He says, well, I was homeless since I was 14. So we asked, well, okay, do you ever go out and work with homeless veterans, or do you have an attachment to them, right? Yeah. So we contact the homeless shelter. They gave him a company car and a job, and now his wife calls and says, it's awesome. Instead of him self-medicating all night, he cuts it off about 8 o'clock, doesn't drink anymore, because tomorrow somebody's life will depend on him. And he gave up the greatest mission in America, defending her. And America slaps the word hero on your back. You're a hero. You return home to the couch doing nothing. Now he has a mission to go save a life again to his brothers and sisters. That right there, as well as the Vietnam vets coming in and mentoring them, are the two most important things that are making us so successful at saving these lives.
That's fantastic. So now that is a good segue for the video. Is it okay for us to have a look at that?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is, by the way, I don't think we've mentioned the name of, we talked about your umbrella organization. Let's repeat that for
Yeah,
our viewers.
it's Wounded Soldiers and Family Relief Fund.
Okay.
But Our Heroes Dreams is the main thing that everybody knows about. It's an awesome, a very awesome organization. Here's the video.
So it's ourheroesdreams.org, and we're going to have a look at the video here.
Our Heroes Dreams is a nonprofit organization that affords wounded veterans of all generations the ability to achieve goals they thought they could no longer achieve. To reunite soldiers with their families who are forced to deal with the post-traumatic stress that combat created. To introduce them to the many programs that can make their transition back into society a successful one. I know what it's like to feel like a lesser man because of my physical disabilities and wonder if others see me the same way. To have the greatest mission on earth, defending our country, taken away one day with nothing to replace it. To be asked to turn the soldier light switch on and off between tours while trying to leave and re-enter society. But I also know what it's like to stop feeling that way and how to share that remedy with others. That's what Our Heroes Dreams is all about. One way we accomplish this task is a program called A Healing Safari, a program that is unique and exciting enough to draw the veterans out of the shelter of their homes. On our Healing Safari, veterans and their families unite to visit a world that is both strange and magical to all, a world that enables them to temporarily escape their thought process, a world that helps them realize how change is possible and that help is available to them on many levels. Located in beautiful Monterey, California, the Healing Safari is a 5-day experience found nowhere else in the world. Visitors enjoy lush, authentic South African bungalows along with exotic animals, many of which they were able to interact with hands-on. Also invited to enjoy the many world-renowned attractions that Monterey is so famous for. This program works. We've proven it works. The animals, especially the elephants, are what's getting these people out of their houses for the first time since their return from service. They open their minds enough to absorb the remedy. We've seen it diminish, if not end their drug and alcohol use. And once they see that a new mission is the true fix, we help them find one. A couple of them have even climbed on board our effort, making Our Heroes Dreams their new mission. And with just a little help, we can grow this into something that will afford us the ability to offer it to many, many more veterans and end this terrifying suicide rate.
we saw the video, this great facility with elephants and other animals. Can you tell us about that? How did that come into play into this whole effort?
Yeah, it was amazing. I had a dream at an airport, and I wanted to create a place for veterans of all generations to come together and to get the help that they need. And one of the veterans that was there at that time had no arms and no legs. His name is David Riley. And he was actually had a gun in his mouth in the closet at the time. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what do you used to do? What drove you? And he says, well, I used to scuba dive all the time. And I had started a thing where I wanted to fulfill dreams for veterans, like a Make-A-Wish Foundation. That's how it originally started. And he was going to be our first guy. And I said, okay, let's go scuba diving. And I'm scared to death because I vowed to do everything that they did. And so then we get out there to Monterey. We flew out, and I'm like, how do you get a guy with no arms and no legs to scuba dive? So he popped his limbs off, pushed him in the water, and called him Bob for a while. But he loves that joke. But in the end, the camera guy that was filming us, after he came up, and he only came up because he was out of air. He loved it so much to be able to go down again that the camera guy said, hey, you guys are awesome. You guys have no limbs, and you're not complaining. He goes, my back hurts, and I'm over here crying. He goes, you guys want to come see my elephants? And I'm like, elephants? It's Monterey. You know, what are you talking about?
So he was a cameraman.
He was a cameraman.
Wow.
And so we went back, and we're riding elephants, and we learned real quick that the elephants had PTSD. You see, when we put Dave up there, the male's usually in charge on the elephants, and the females pushed him out of the way, even at feeding time. And they went up and they started kissing and touching his missing limbs.
Wow.
Because of we took him the limbs off because they, and to get him up there. And they were kissing him, and you could see they started to cry. And we have it all on video. It's really cool.
God.
And they're so sympathetic to people. And so we learned real quick that there was a lot to this. Well, the dream that I had in the airport just the week before had these cabins in it. And we looked out and we saw these cabins. And I asked the owner, what are those? He goes, oh, it's a bed and breakfast inside of the zoo. Long story short, it worked out. He actually funded the first few events. And we brought veterans out, and it's evolved since then.
And so now is this facility dedicated to this cause, or is
No,
it?
ma'am. It's open to the public.
Okay.
The bed and breakfast cabins are there all the time. It's turning into a full-fledged zoo now, Monterey Zoological Gardens. And we come in and we rent out the cabins, and we rent them all out and close the place down for a week at a time when we come there.
Golly. So these events then are a pivotal part of the healing process, the opportunity to live out a dream. You talked about the Segway and your path across the country at 10 miles per hour. Do other veterans get involved in utilization of Segways as well?
Oh, they do. There's a really cool nonprofit called Segs for Vets. And they've given out, I'm not sure the exact number right now, but over 1,500 Segways to use as mobility devices. And it's a really cool program because you're not sitting in a wheelchair looking up, you're actually standing up and being able to ride around. And so it works really well.
Excellent. So that's got to be a big confidence builder, I would think, too, instead of looking up that world up here. So we've got Segways, we've got zoo safaris, we've got scuba diving. Didn't you tell me something about skydiving as well?
Yeah, we do. There's so much. We go skydiving. The veterans that need the real adrenaline like to hunt, we do hunts. We've got a program where we take them into race cars and they get to drive a race car. Whatever their dream is, or to get them inspired, we try and make that happen for them and to get them out there back in the community so that they stop self-medicating and feeling sorry for themselves.
So this is where you liken it to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but this is strictly dedicated to rescuing a vet, if you will.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
it does sound like a rescue effort.
It really is, yeah. Just before I came here today, I met with a veteran that was having a lot of troubles. They found a noose hanging from his stairwell, and there's blood everywhere, and he had checked out, and he didn't even know what happened. And these guys are just sitting on the couch with no mission, sucking down alcohol and VA candy. But if they had something to do that would drive them, that they can be a hero again for, that can replace that adrenaline rush, then they would be doing that. But they don't know how to get there. And you really go from hero to zero overnight.
But what strikes me, Justin, is that the circle of this, because you've got somebody in these dire situations. They're administered to by one or more heroes, and then in many cases they have the opportunity to turn around and become a hero to someone else. Is that true?
Very true. Very true.
Do you have a particular story that stands out for you where that kind of cycle happened?
Oh yeah, dozens. One of the houses we gave away, we asked the guy, "Where would you like to live?" And he goes, "Right there in Monterey, next to the zoo. I want to be able to help out." So we gave him a house over there. We were able to do it through the Warrior Support Foundation, and he's living right there next, and he's there helping all the time. Just today, when we met this guy a few hours ago, he's like, "You mean I can give back? You mean I can get out and volunteer? What?
Awesome.
I've been wanting to do something, but I don't know how." And he's crying, and he hasn't even been through the program yet. But it's over and over. Last month, one of the vets called in and said, and it was another vet that came to us with a gun in his mouth, and he says, "I'm finally to a position where I'm up and volunteering, and I'm doing good." And he goes, "I'm just going to start donating $75 a month to the organization." And he lives in Texas. In fact, he's one of the homeless vets that we got a job at the homeless shelter. So.
I wanted to take a moment to remind folks of your organization's names. We're not done with our chat today, but OurHeroesDreams.org is an opportunity for folks to learn more about what you do and opportunities for them to get involved. One of the things that struck me as we're sitting here talking is with the incredible success that your program has had. Have you seen any ripple effect from your program into these other efforts? Because we talked about how they're failing, basically, because they're trying to resolve an event versus a condition. So has there been an impact, an upward flow of what you're doing into other programs?
Well, I'd hate to say they're failing, because they do, they all have a mission and a purpose to give back and to keep going. But there are several organizations, including the VA, that have said, "You know what, we need to implement what you're doing because we can see that it's working." And several of the local VAs and different groups like that are really getting involved now. It's starting to become, many groups want to start implementing what we're doing.
Excellent. And thank you for correcting me on that. I didn't mean so much that they're failing, but when we talk about the terrible condition of veteran suicide and the fact that there's been a failure rate in some of those programs, but certainly there's other areas where the veterans programs are critical. And speaking of which, here we are again the day before Veterans Day. Of late, the Veterans Administration has been in the news, sometime with not too, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, complimentary response to what's going on. So tell me about the role the Veterans Administration had in your own recovery and how you see them today. Where can the Veterans Administration go?
It was in the beginning. I was at Walter Reed, and I liked it. We had a lot of good stuff there. And as I came to the West Coast, it was really good too. But so many of our veterans on the East Coast and even the Midwest are having so many issues with the VA. Appointment times, they might come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 5 o'clock at night. They still haven't been seen, and it took them a year to get that appointment. But on the West Coast, out here, especially Fresno and Palo Alto and even San Francisco, they're so good. I could pick up the phone right now and be seen tonight or tomorrow without a problem. And if I need anything, they just get it to me. I thoroughly love the VA system out here, and it's great. There are issues in other parts.
Are you encouraged and see the opportunity? Do you feel truly that the administration is resolved, or the organization's resolved to heal this themselves, if you will?
Well, as a whole, I think it is, but there are individuals. There's always bad apples,
Sure.
There's people in it for the wrong reasons. But I've met so many good doctors that are not there for a paycheck. I mean, they have to get their paycheck,
Right.
but they could make more in the civilian world, but they're excited to be able to give back to those that served. And overall, I think it's a good thing. It needs a lot of work. The claims process is horrible, especially even out here in the West Coast. We have so many veterans on backlog. It's taken 2 to 3 years to get their claims done, including myself. When I first got back, I went 1.5 years without a paycheck.
Oh my gosh.
I lost everything. I lost the house, I lost the car, I lost everything. I had to move in with my dad, and it was horrible. But and then once they get it, it's fine, There is a lot of issues with that.
Do you find yourself, or do any of the elements of your organization have to act as an intermediary when some issues need to be resolved for someone you're
We
working
do,
with?
we've been very successful, even above and beyond from going to congressmen. We usually can get more done because what I do is I just go to Oakland and we sit there in their office and they say, well, okay, we'll get back to you in 3 days. No, I'll wait. Then you stay there all day. The next day you're there all day, you know?
And now you've got Boomer at your side too,
Got
so it
Boomer
makes
there.
it harder to say no.
Yep. We've been able to help a lot of people with a lot of those issues. We've been, one of the big problems is that nobody knows about, I don't want to say nobody, many people don't know about the programs that are out there that they qualify for. Even today, the veteran didn't know that he could be making $2,000 more a month.
Wow.
You know, and it's just a very common thing that they don't get what they don't, sorry, it's a very common thing that they don't know what benefits are out there, so we help them get that. We put on all the other Band-Aids. We get them a home if they need it, or we fix up their home, fix up their car, their relationships, their marriages, and then help them get that new mission in life. And it's been very successful.
So you act as an advocate?
Yeah, you know, in the beginning and for most of the time, I didn't do it correctly. I didn't delegate, and I kind of ran things on my own. And we've grown big enough now that we have a nice board set up here in Fresno area that are running it, and taking over all of those aspects. And we're pretty new at that part of it, and it's just been awesome. And now we're getting more and more volunteers. We got a warrior board put together that we're able to go out and evaluate people's needs and to go out and assist. Because we're getting way too many calls, suicide calls. Even right here in the Tri-County area, Fresno, Kings, Tulare, it might get 5 calls a week. And so we're starting to get now to where we can really get out there and do more work. Plus, unfortunately, we had a 23-year-old kid that was killed in Afghanistan this last year from Fresno while he was with the Fresno Guard unit. And his parents took the insurance money and bought 50 acres and are donating the use of that to the organization. And so we're trying to build a full-time camp up in Raymond, just outside of Fresno, so that we can assist veterans on a daily basis, 365 days a year.
Again, directing our viewers to go to ourheroesdreams.org, and it's dreamsplural.org to find out how to stay in touch with you and find you on Facebook and so forth.
Yeah,
so
and it's
let's
cool. We
talk about, before we have to part company today, let's talk about how people get involved. If there's a need, we have a veteran listening to this program and there's a need for services, how do they get in touch with you folks?
Well, go onto the website, ourheroesdreams.org, and my phone number, email is on there, and there's an application on there. Give us a call, and we go from there. We make it happen.
Good. But thank you for bringing our attention to what you've been doing, and go to ourheroesdreams.org to find more information. If there's a need, if you just want to be aware of what this fabulous organization has done, and just to take hope that there are resources out there that really do work. Thank you for your service, for your ongoing service. Godspeed and God bless you in everything you're doing.
God bless you too.
Yeah, thank you.